Hey guys, it's Sierra obviously, and this video is going to be covering more writing tips and how to be a confident writer. This video will cover writing habits, building a lasting and realistic writing habit, tips on how to manage writer's block, the importance of writing goals and tracking the progress, which is something I struggle with myself, creating a writing routine that makes sense for you, and how to stay motivated. I know the first question that you're thinking is, how often do I need to write? And the answer is, write every day. I did a little bit of research and I came across K.M. Weiland. I think it's Weiland. She's an author, and on her blog she was talking about how the key to having a successful writing schedule is essentially not the discipline but the commitment. She goes on in the article to talk about how writing every day doesn't have to be as strict as it sounds. Saying writing every day doesn't mean you actually have to write every day. You create a schedule that tends to work for you. So in a sense, you're writing every day in your version. So for one person, it could be writing literally every single day, or for another person, it could be writing 2 times a week. And for them, that is as consistent as they can be with their type of schedule. So for me personally, I tried to literally do it like writing every day, and that actually led me to burnout. I would like write a little bit each day, like on a piece of paper when I was at work, and it just wasn't sticking how I wanted it to stick. Like I'll get like little ideas and I'll write them down, or I'll like think about, okay, this is where I left off at. Let me carry on with the next scene. But then as I'm sitting there, I'm writing, and what's coming out, it's complete and absolute garbage. And I know that's the whole point of writing, is to like write, even though if it's garbage, you can edit it out later, but it wasn't flowing how I wanted it to flow. So then by the time I would come home and actually like type it up, I didn't even want to type it up. Something else will spark up and I'll start typing something completely else. So that it just negated the whole point of me writing during the day in the first place. So it was just a little bit like that for me, but I think it was like over in November and December, towards the end of the year, because this is 2025, obviously. But at the end of the year, it was really much so of me writing 3 times a week, max. That's really what I had in me to write for that kind of schedule. I feel like writing 3 times a week, roughly 2-3 times a week, depending on the week, was best for me, especially when it comes to writing Leo and Dahlia, because this project is completely different from the projects I've worked on before, and I felt like having this type of schedule will really help me actually go through with it and actually, commit to it, was through listening to the playlist all the time, because a lot of the songs on my playlist are some of my favorite songs. So I would just listen to it, even if I was just like cleaning up. I would always be reminded of my story. So I always get pulled back into Leo and Dahlia's world, regardless of what I'm doing. So I've always been constantly connected with them. So it kind of really helped with having that commitment, because they never left me alone. So going with the commitment, I feel like another aspect is the consistency. So those are like the 2 C's for writing, I feel like, in my opinion. And so in terms of like trying to figure out what's your definition of writing every day, but you also have to be honest with yourself, because if you're not writing consistently, it's not going to work out. If you're writing like once a month, it's not going to be as consistent as someone who's writing 2 or 3 times a week. It's just not going to work out how you want to. Like, just be honest with yourself and what your expectations are when it comes to what you're working on, the project, and having realistic ideas, realistic goals, and a realistic consistency to commit to your story. Consistency and commitment. To me, writing is like playing Sims. Like you created this family like maybe like a month ago, whatever, and you created a new family or whatever, you play with that family. But then when you go back to the family that you made a month ago, it's pure chaos. Like one sim is dead, another sim has reached old age, their child that used to get A's when they were a child is now failing high school. The dog's dead too. Like it's just complete and utter chaos. And I feel like that's really completely tied with writing, because if you're not watching it, if you're not taking care of your story, it's going to end up in a shithole. And it's so jarring, and you just feel immediately so disconnected from your story, from the characters, because you don't even know what's going on anymore. Like, you don't even know why your character is sitting on the steps crying. Like, you don't even remember that. And you have to read all the other pages before then to even know why they're doing what they're doing or why they're there. You don't even remember. You literally just abandoned your story. You abandoned your characters. So for me, I'm extremely tied to Leo and Dahlia. I feel like the way that I've cultivated my story and created my characters, I can't leave them alone. I literally can't, just by listening to music constantly that reminds me of them, or even just seeing posts on Instagram, Pinterest, anywhere else where I'm just like, ooh, this sounds exactly like how Dahlia would respond to this. Like, they won't leave me alone. I feel like for me, it's like having children. I don't have kids, but it feels like having kids to me. It's like that nagging feeling, that nagging sense of like, hello, I'm here. Like they're pulling on your leg and everything like that, and you can't ignore them, and you don't even want to either. Like you get frustrated with them, you get frustrated with the characters, you get frustrated with the storyline, but you can never neglect them. You can never completely disregard them. So it's like you have to like check on them, because you never know what's gonna happen. Like you left them on the steps, but then when you get back to it and then you realize, you're like, oh snap, my character might be depressed. It might lead to a completely different route. Or if this is your first time, as you progress more and more in your writing, your characters kind of take on life of their own. It's kind of like having a semi-autopilot. Like you have ideas, you have the characteristics of them, certain things that you want to happen, but things just happen. We don't know how it happens. Somehow, some way, they end up saying things that you're like, ooh, hold on a second, that's a little bit out of pocket. We need to like back that up. Like why are we like acting like this? Why are we making these decisions? Like characters do it all the time. So it's very much like it's trying to like rein in children. You gotta rein them in, you gotta keep track of them, you always have to check in on them, because anything can literally just completely shift your story. It can completely shift just everything about your book in general. It's all to say that the world that you're creating is extremely important. That book, those characters are your children. Take care of them. But Sierra, I'm so mad. I don't know what to write. I'm getting writer's block and I'm pissed about it. I don't know where these characters are going. I don't know what's going on in the story. It's okay. We're going to navigate this space together. Having writer's block and having imposter syndrome is literally like having old friends that hold you back from being your best self. It's highly annoying, but we're gonna find a way out of it. There are different ways to go about fighting your imposter syndrome and your writer's block. But first off, starting with imposter syndrome. That's kind of inevitable. I know it's bad to say that, but it kind of is. We all struggle with accepting that our work is good enough. And so we just have to keep in mind that as we're writing more and more, our writing improves. If you're reading too as well, if you're connecting with other writers, engage more with other people, your writing gets better. But we all have those feelings, and so it's kind of hard to say like you can fight imposter syndrome all the way to the end. Nah, but we all struggle with it. Even like your favorite authors have struggled with it. They probably thought the book that you absolutely love, they probably thought it was trash at the beginning. We all deal with it. It's just something that we have to take some deep breaths, remind ourselves of our worth in our story and that we're confident in it. There's going to be revisions. That's something we all need to keep in mind. Like our story will need to be revised along the way. Nothing's perfect, but you want it to be the best version that you can create it to be. It has to be in your voice. It doesn't have to be perfect language in like a Stephen King novel. No, it has to be perfect in your writing ability, in your tone of voice, in your writing style. Now for writer's block, there's a lot of different things you can do. I'm gonna look over to the side and like rattle off a list of things that I created. So directions this way. You could like write about your day, write about your character's perspective on a topic. That's something I just came up with. I feel like that'll be something very interesting to do, because especially if there's like a huge moral ethic or just concept in general that you have in your story that's really impactful for your characters, having their voice, their opinion on the topic can actually also help with your writing and how your story plot is going to go in your character development. But literally, for me, it'll be like writing Dahlia's point of view on mental health. Like that's something that she completely struggles with, that she has a lot of history with. I feel like that's something that you can do just to like switch it up a little bit. I feel like that was probably like an interesting idea. Let me know in the comments below if that sounds kind of interesting to try to do. Other ways to fight writer's block, some things that I do is I listen to music a lot. I love music and I love to listen to the playlist that I create for my stories, but even then I also like to listen to those pre-made playlists on YouTube. So it's just like POV, you're a badass type of thing. I love listening to those because that's where I get a lot of inspiration for other stories or even just character personality traits that I think of, but also some are just like very cool to listen to. I'm like, ew, a little mysterious music. Maybe I'll write a mystery novel. You know, you get a little big-headed sometimes when you do that. But still, it's just like it gets you in the space of writing without being like, hey, yeah, sit down and write at the computer. It's like just listening to music that inspires you. Another tip could be actually reading books. So reading books within the genre that you're writing or even a genre that you're not writing. Writing is also extremely helpful when it comes to having writer's block. Who knew? Maybe there's some aspects of the stories, especially if you're reading within the genre that you're writing, maybe there are certain things that you can take into account for your story, like, oh, I never thought of that, or like, ooh, that's an interesting twist. I would love to try to implement that in a different way in mine. It could just give you like little ideas. It doesn't have to immediately throw you right into the ring of writing, but at least it gets your mind going. And at least you're going at some of a pace versus not going at a pace at all. So our brain really runs on punishment and reward. This is based off of the learning behavior theories, but essentially our brain rewards ourselves and punishes ourselves based on different things related to our goals. Essentially, if we're making certain decisions that are towards our goals, we're going to reward ourselves, giving yourself little rewards throughout the day of like, yes, I wrote 10 words. I can have a piece of chocolate, that type of thing. Like we get a little bit of dopamine. We get excited when we have a little bit of our success along the way. Now, in terms of punishment, whenever we're not getting something and we're setting out for something, we're setting out for a goal, but we don't receive the reward, we're like, well, I don't want to do it. Like if you set out to say, I want to write 3,000 words and you wrote, if you write 100, you're like, well, now I can't do what I want to do. Or like now you're frustrated with yourself because you didn't hit this goal, and it's fine. You don't have to write specifically 3,000 words. Just giving yourself grace, really. Just giving yourself grace and giving yourself time to pace and grow as a writer. Now moving on to tracking your progress. So there's a lot of different links people create, or even just out there in the interwebs, you can do your research on it, of people that have created Excel sheets to track your writing progress. There's websites, there's NaNoWriMo, there's, oh my God, I feel like there's a lot of options. So I'm just gonna like probably like put them up on the screen around here so you can see all the options and figure out which one works best for you when it comes to tracking your progress with your writing. Like, do you want to know your word count every day? Do you want to be able to see like an actual picture of something and you see it like filling up? For me, I need a physical copy. I need something to see. I've tried NaNoWriMo, but I felt like for me that has done more harm than good because I was so set on like trying to hit those specific numbers that it generates for you to reach like each single day. And I was not reaching it, and it just made me very discouraged because I'm like, well, now I don't want to write because I didn't hit 18,780 words by June 11th. Now I don't want to do it because now I only have 15,000 words. Ridiculous stuff like that. So I feel like for me, I need to create my own. So I did. And I'm probably going to pop it up on the screen. This is what it looks like so far. And this is just like me gauging what I want to see for myself in progress and keeping track of it myself, but not in a way where it's like very daunting of like, I need to hit this certain amount of words each day. It's very much like just slowly showing the progress of me writing because I am about over halfway through the story. I'm not even sure anymore. Because I feel like there's a lot other things that are going to come up. But I'm trying not to write too many words in a story, but my max is going to be like 80K. Like, what's the limit? I have like certain numbers I want to hit, but I don't have a specific date I have them. I just have literally, I want to reach 50K, reach 55K, reach 60K, reach 65K in increments of 5 because I feel like that's easier for me to get to because I normally write about 1,000 words whenever I do write. If it's not every other day, it's like twice a week, give or take. But still, that's progress, and you're able to see it without being so harsh on yourself. So check out all those different websites and see what works for you. If you want to make your own, you can make your own too. If you just feel like it. If you're a creative girly and you have like washi tape, you have a nice journal, and you want to make it all cute, go ahead and do you, boo. Now let's talk about actually creating your schedule. You have to ask yourself and be honest with yourself, how much time do you want to spend on this project? And it doesn't have to be every day. Remember, identify what your writing every day looks like. For me, it's writing 2 to 3 times a week if I can. And I like to do it in increments of an hour. If you want to do more than an hour, if you want to do 30 minutes, that's completely fine. If you want to write just for like 5 minutes, if it's very hectic, if you're like, if I can squeeze in 5 minutes before bed, I write just a little bit. That's better than nothing. Whatever works for you. I mean, as long as you're writing something, at least. You can really write, she said this. Bam. 10 words. Successful day. Call it what it is. But really just like listen to your intuition when it comes to building the schedule and being honest with yourself of how much time you can actually commit to it. Like you can say, I want to do an hour, but then the day gets busy and then you get to the end of the day, you're like, I don't have an hour to give. Give it 10 minutes. Give it 10 minutes, then take a shower, eat your dinner, and go to sleep. Just like a little bit. Because remember, it's literally your characters and your story is literally like taking care of a child. You have to care for them to some degree. Not everybody has 100%. You have to give something. At least that child needs some type of attention, even if it really is just means you editing the first page or you're just creating, I don't know, you're just writing down the next scene, at least something. You got to give your book something to work with. So then when you actually do have the time to dedicate an hour, more than an hour, maybe you're like, I'm going to dedicate the whole day. No one's going to bug me. I ain't got nothing to do. Then you really already have like a really good blueprint when it comes to writing your story. Your future self is going to thank you. Now on to the last segment, if you will. And this is just something a little bit from me to you, and that is motivation. So think of this as like my Christmas gift to you all, my belated Christmas gift. These phrases are going to be a little bit harsh, but I feel like they're going to be needed. The first one is, no one told you to write this story. You chose to do it. That's simple. Your characters need you. Without you, your characters cease to exist. Like, period. Point blank. This one is nicer. This last point is nicer. You are a creative person for a reason. So, create. If you're making fan art, go ahead and make your fan art first. It doesn't matter. You're a creative person. You have different outlets, different ways you express yourself and express your characters in your writing. Do it. It makes you happy. You like what you're doing. There's nothing wrong with that. Hopefully these tips are extremely helpful for you on your writing journey. And yeah, if any of these really resonate with you, you can drop it in the comments below. Or if you're just like, yes, you could drop in a stack of book emojis. But until the next time, stay magical. Bye.